February 14th, 1929. Chicago. 7 men are lined up against a garage wall on North Clark Street and gunned down in cold blood. The man believed responsible controlled bootleg liquor, prostitution, and gambling across an entire city. He bribed judges, mayors, and police chiefs. He was at one point untouchable. The FBI couldn't pin a single murder on him, so the U.S. government did something almost nobody saw coming. They sent in an accountant. Born in Brooklyn in 1899 to Italian immigrant parents, Al Capone was kicked out of school at 14 after striking a teacher. By his teens, he was running with street gangs, and by his early 20s, he'd moved to Chicago to work for crime boss Johnny Torrio. The timing couldn't have been better, or worse, depending who you ask. In 1920, the U.S. government banned the sale of alcohol entirely. Prohibition was meant to make America more sober and law-abiding. Instead, it created the single greatest business opportunity organized crime had ever seen. Capone built an empire selling illegal liquor across Chicago, reportedly pulling in over $100 million a year at his peak, worth well over $1 billion today. He wasn't hiding either. He gave newspaper interviews. He sat courtside at Cubs games. He handed out turkeys to the poor at Thanksgiving and opened soup kitchens during the Depression. To many in Chicago, Capone wasn't a villain. He was a folk hero. To the federal government, he was public enemy number 1. Here's the problem federal agents ran into again and again. They couldn't prove anything. Witnesses disappeared. Juries were bribed. Evidence vanished. Capone had built layers of protection so thick that even after the Valentine's Day Massacre, one of the most brutal gangland killings in American history, investigators couldn't tie a single body to him directly. So a small team, led by a young federal agent named Elliot Ness, decided to try something completely different. Forget murder. Forget bootlegging charges. Go after the one thing Capone had never bothered to hide from: his money. Capone had never filed an income tax return in his life. Ever. Despite running one of the largest criminal enterprises in American history, on paper, he had no reported income at all. Treasury agents spent years quietly tracing his spending: expensive suits, custom cars, lavish hotel bills, and building a case not around blood, but around receipts. In 1931, Al Capone, the man who had evaded murder charges for years, was indicted not for a single killing, but for tax evasion. He reportedly walked into the courtroom confident, expecting a plea deal his lawyers had already arranged. Then the judge did something Capone's team hadn't planned for. He rejected the deal entirely and forced a full trial. Capone was convicted and sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. At the time, the harshest tax evasion sentence in U.S. history. He was sent first to Atlanta, then to the newly opened, inescapable federal prison on an island in San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz. By the time he was released in 1939, syphilis contracted years earlier had severely deteriorated his mind. The man once feared across an entire city spent his final years in Florida, reportedly confused and increasingly disconnected from reality, until his death in 1947. Al Capone survived assassination attempts, federal investigations, and rival gang wars. What finally brought him down wasn't a bullet. It was a tax return he never filed. It remains one of the most quoted lessons in American law enforcement history. Sometimes the fastest way to catch an untouchable man isn't through his crimes, it's through his wallet.